Hello and welcome to All For United WFC.
Hello, welcome to All For United WFC with me, not John Foster and USC, as people would be quite surprised. You lucky people have got me now doing this today because unfortunately John's has lost the battle with his own voice, so it's vastly going, but he's going to be my glamorous, and if you've seen him, you know he is, assistant in the background, doing a bit of tech stuff, like highlighting comments and stuff like that. But yeah, hopefully it'll make some sense, or we'll have a laugh either way if it goes wrong. So that'll be good. So yeah, just quickly, how is everyone? Ben, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's nice to be back. It's been a come on.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Maisie?
I'm all well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Having a go at this hosting lark. John makes it look so easy, doesn't he? That's the thing. But...
You'll do brilliant.
And John?
Hi there, mate. Yeah, we've got to get one John on the show at least.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's just a big ruse so I don't get John O and John mixed up for the next 50 minutes. Or whatever. And obviously John, I think he can sort of like do like a symbol or a sign with that he's there. He is in the background, I promise, as you can see on the bottom of the screen. So yeah, obviously we're in the international break now for the women. Obviously as United fans, that brings mixed emotions, when it comes to these things. But I thought the first thing we maybe might want to look at is there's this little thing that's gone around on Twitter, which is always the best start to a good story, about top 50 players in the WSL. I'm not sure how scientific it is, but I think it's been looked at quite a lot of detail. John, have you got that around at any point, that particular list?
Yeah, I know there's 4 or 5 United players on it. I hate things like this because I don't rate them. It's a popularity contest. It's Twitter chaff, really, isn't it?
I mean, it's good information. I mean, obviously, out of the 50, I've obviously highlighted the United players, and Honor's 27. Katie Zellum is 36 out of 50. Lucy Staniforth has just hit the top 50 as 50. And as no Jackie Gronan, no Leah, and Tooney's 47.
And I think that pretty much proves my point when you're saying Tooney's only the 50th best player in the league. That's crap. Leah Galton, not even the 50th best player in the league. Crap.
But obviously, it gets people talking, though, doesn't it, Ben? And
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen what we're referring to. Is it Fran Kirby's number one on it?
Yeah, and I think that. But I mean, I would probably question when this was voted on, because if you think Carly Telford hasn't played a WSL game for God knows how long, and that's well, I don't know. There's no words for that. Yeah, and you can't tell me that Lee's the best player in the league at the moment, and you can't tell whether Steph Houghton is the number 8 best player in the league at the moment. So
maybe it's just like a way we can all make friends and just be annoyed with each other. Some sort of Arsenal fans are possibly annoyed that certain players aren't there.
Maren Mjelde, number 6, she hasn't played since. So that's a dreadful injury she suffered. But yeah, I just wonder that when it was decided these players were the best 50 and what, because I don't know, it's bizarre. It's like the whole thing when it's always everything when she's never played a game for God knows how long, isn't it? It's one of them again.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, obviously, Maisie, you're relatively new to the women's team. It's good to have a bit of a debate and on Twitter though about it, isn't it? That's the interesting thing about it.
Yeah, definitely. I was looking at that top 50 myself, and I was looking at it thinking, what are they doing it based on? I obviously understand Frank Kirby being quite high up because of you do look at Frank Kirby's stats; they are very, very good. But when you look at, like, for instance, Lauren James, who's on the list, who hasn't had a game this season, you do question where has this come from? Because even when she was a Man United player, she didn't have every single game time, neither. But then you look at Ella Toon, she's in such good form. She's getting a goal or an assist every single game, and she's only 47th on the list. And how Jackie's not on the list as well, and Leah Galton, another one. You do look at that and you do question how has this been the case? Have they brought 10 people saying this is my top 15 and worked it out together, or was it based off of form in the past so many years? It does really question me, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, completely. As I say, I think that it's interesting because I think it made me think about content because obviously, Ben, I know you do a lot of neutral stuff, and you obviously got your Australia top there, and you do some stuff with the Australian League. What's your view on where the United players are? Would you have them a bit higher? Do you think they're a bit too high on some of them? And sort of my supplementary would be, I'm just thinking out loud, wouldn't it be good actually if you had a kind of like a player's player, like a voted by kind of situation that maybe some media people can get involved in and
get
a bit more exposure.
I mean, if you think back again at the team of the season last year, that was a bit of a joke as well. Because I mean, I think Sam Kerr was put in midfield. You know, she herself took the piss out of that on social media, saying, "I've never played midfield in my life." You know, so the whole thing is, it's clickbait, I suppose, isn't it? I think if they don't say what it's based on, if they don't say who selected, we don't know who selected it either, do we? So, you know, any one of us could put a list out tonight, couldn't they? And say, okay, these are the best 50 players, period. That's it.
Yeah, no, completely. This is the thing, isn't it? But I mean, I think it's London-based, of course. Just some of the old prejudices coming out tonight. Yeah,
it seems like a list that Phil Neville might have been part of creating.
He is the magician of playing people out of position, isn't it? That's the thing. But no, I mean, maybe we can just sort of broaden it a bit before we sort of move on to another topic on there. I mean, I suppose we haven't had Johnny stay. We haven't had John on for a while. Ben, what does any particular United players this season that you feel have stood out? Maybe come a bit under the radar that you weren't expecting to be as good.
Not necessarily come under the radar. I mean, I think I've seen three. I've seen three of the games. Saw the Derby game. I saw the Chelsea game, and I saw the opening game of the season. And I think, Ella Toon's been great. I suppose Zellem hasn't necessarily impressed me in the way I thought she might have done. But I think pretty much, you were in a difficult position, as we've talked about in the summer when I was last on. It was you were in a difficult position over the summer. I think, from an outsider looking in, I would say you've probably either hit expectations or are ahead of expectation. I think probably at this place in time.
Yeah, no, it's that's good to hear. I mean, I think depending on the day of the week, you'll either get us following one or the other there. But yeah, so obviously just to also broaden it out a bit as well. Obviously, Maisie and John, as United fans, would you put any other United players in there? Would you take any out?
I think the big thing is, you're right, is context. It's when was it voted for? Because it was voted for the beginning of last season or mid-season. I can't believe Leah Galton's not in it, because she was easily our best player for much of last season. I think Mary Earps should have had it in a shout. Goalkeepers are renownedly not really well received, are they, in that respect? I think this season, people that have impressed me, I thought Hansen started the season well, but has maybe gone off the boil a little bit. But it's probably the two at the back in Ona and Blundell on fullbacks and Mannion. I think Maria's done well as well. I think really our back five has been our best players so far this season.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely. And what about you, Maisie?
I gotta agree there with John. Blundell has definitely stood out for me, and she has been shortlisted as well for October's Women's Super League Player of the Month. So that is definitely a good start. She's had 2 appearances and she's had 3 assists. And for someone who does play as a defender, it's absolutely brilliant that she has got them stats. She's had 1 win, 1 draw. So she needs to, for me, she needs a really good shout because I think she's quite underrated in the team. Hansen has had a great start as well. I think Russo as well, she's another one who's had a good start to the Super League. She didn't necessarily have that starting 11 lineup at the beginning, but she's worked away and she has got them more starts now under Mark Skinner. So it's good to see on how she will continue, and hopefully she doesn't pick any injuries up, because I think having that striker who is a proper striker like Russo, it will help a lot.
No, completely.
Blundell's a great signing. So I'm pretty local to Kingsmeadow, so I've seen her an awful lot over the last 3 or 4 years. And yeah, I mean, it's a big loss, particularly because Chelsea have got no depth in their defence whatsoever. So that's a massive loss for her to go. And yeah, you've got a great player there.
It's almost like. Sorry, mate. I was just going to say it's almost like if she wasn't good enough for Chelsea, she's not good enough for this.
Oh, she's
to be
good enough for Chelsea.
chosen like higher, and it's just a bunch of crap. That is, I think you just
for Chelsea. Even
why do you think Chelsea got rid of her?
It was because effectively it was in the deal for Lauren, wasn't it? It was
right.
It was a swap as part of it. And realistically, Chelsea aren't going to get rid of anyone in midfield or attack because that's the strength and depth for them. But you know, people locally have been saying for 2 years now there is no strength and depth in the team defensively. Up until this season, they've got away with it in the Super League. I was at the Emirates on the opening day of the season, and defence was shambolic. And I think at the times that they faced good teams this season, Arsenal and then Wolfsburg, the other week in the Champions League, they've really struggled. So yeah, that's a big issue, and it will be an issue for them. And it could make the league that bit more open this year, I think.
Well, obviously, we can bond on shambolic defences because when they played us at the LSV.
I wasn't going to mention that.
Well, it's like aversion therapy. You've just got to sometimes got to rip the Band-Aid off. And I love how you as a top team, but we still love you anyway, Ben. You're still here. No, you're right. You are correct, obviously. But no, it's interesting because one of the things that I noticed with Helen was, I think one of the first tweets was like a genuinely like a gutted tweet off the supporters group with Chelsea, like, wishing her well and stuff like that. And when it was, someone I wasn't necessarily aware of straight away, I was like, oh, okay, because that was like a proper, almost like a bit of emotional tweet from them, like, best of luck, and like it clearly meant something that she was going up to us.
Player.
And so what was that?
She's a great player.
I think probably I'm more surprised that I think coming from Chelsea, you always knew she was going to be a good player, and she was certainly always going to be a step up from what we got. But I think her character, the way she settled in, all of those things, a work ethic, I think for me, at the moment, we've definitely got the best end of the deal.
Yeah, and I noticed today, actually, almost like we planned this, there was an interview that was released, wasn't it, where she was saying about she wanted to sort of fall back in love with football again, and that's already happened. So I suppose that's pleasing as well, isn't it? And I mean, I've said before, like on other shows, that like the big thing we can offer is first team football to a lot of players, and it's great to see her like thriving in that environment because she knows she's going to play, and it must be great for a player. But obviously, just trying to knit a few things together there. Obviously, without you can't have players without a manager. So what's your topic then, Ben?
Oscar, from the outside looking in, Mark Skinner. I mean, I was in his press conference after the Derby game, and I think what he said in that it's really impressed me. He made the point, this is a journey. Yeah, he at that point he'd been in charge for 90 whatever it was days. They learned a hard lesson defensively against Chelsea. But they showed signs in that game, albeit, that they'd learned lessons from that And it's a building process. And I think the thing now for him is what happens in January in the transfer window. Because I think if he can bring in another good defender and another regular proven goal scorer, then there's all sorts of things possible for this season, never mind the future. So I guess I'm just interested in how you guys see him as well. So I know there was all sorts of various talk when he came in about, he's not necessarily good enough for United, or, he'd only managed Birmingham before. But then again, if you look at, Birmingham were in a very different place then to help the team they are now. But, you look at what he achieved at Birmingham. And I guess I'm interested in, what is the opinion now? Has it changed? Have you seen things? I mean, I would imagine it has, because it's been pretty impressive as a neutral sitting there watching games and reporting on what's been going on.
Yeah, completely. I think so. I think it's one of them, isn't it? It's a shame because his biggest fans, Crewe, lost his voice. Obviously, we've got our own sort of West Midlands maestro. This is it. Who was a big fan. I mean, also I'll pick it up first a little bit, and obviously I'll bring Maisie and you, John, in then as well. I actually really like him. I think the problem with United fans, and I can say this because I am one, is that they just want to like clone Alex Ferguson for the men and the women, all ages. Maybe make an Alexandra Ferguson, or they have one sort of focus, which is they want Alex Ferguson again. And I think, hi Chloe, you're right. But I think that's the main thing. And I know that United's really never been fully comfortable, men or women, with a manager really since then, I think. I mean, I like him because I think he was the best we were going to get. I think that he is good at adding value to players as well. It's not that difficult to make a Pernell Harder, but if you turn an Alatoon, who, was obviously very, very young, bring her through and do make her into someone who's arguably a sort of signed-on starter now for England, or getting there anyway. That I know that's not all him. Obviously, Casey started that process, but it's that kind of added value that I think a club like United need and could only have got, really. What about you, Maisie? And obviously you've been watching women a bit more now. I don't know how much you saw of Casey. What's your view?
I watched quite a lot of Casey. I was really gutted though when Casey left, because I was thinking what is going to happen with the club, and you wasn't hearing anything for weeks about a manager, and you just seen loads of players leaving as well. And I was thinking, wow, what is going on with this women's team? What is going on? But like for me, no matter what, if for example this manager could have played for a non-league table team, I still always back the manager unless I've been proven otherwise. You've got to back your manager, because if, for example, they failed in a non-league team, doesn't mean that did fail at Manchester United. You just need to have faith in the manager, and you need to have faith in the team. So when Matt Skinner came, I thought you've got to give him that belief. You've got to give him the faith. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But he's clearly shown that his kind of style of play, it does work at Manchester United. For me, I feel like he's been absolutely terrific. You can tell the girls love him as well. You can tell his kind of style of play, it does work within the club as well, because he's like that manager who's a bit more possession kind of based manager, whereas I feel like Casey Stoney wasn't that type of manager. She was more for building up that team, but he's like that manager now. He's got that team and he wants to take things one step further. He wants to win trophies, as you can clearly see that he wants to win trophies. And he might want to get into that Champions League as well at the end of the season. And I think he's that right person now to take that one to the next stage further for Manchester United.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of your points there. I think one of the interesting things, Birmingham was an interesting place to go anyway. It was an interesting away. We've sort of covered that in previous shows. But what I did notice is a lot of their academy players at the end of the match were saying hello to Skinner. And it wasn't like, oh, you're right, mate. It was like he had a connection with them. He obviously was pleased to see some of them were in their first team. And he's obviously very good at like building that support and building that rapport with essentially quite young, obviously young female players, and sometimes might need that guidance and stuff, and certain ages and stuff like that. And it's clear he's well liked both with United and obviously with the with the Birmingham squad as well, which shows obviously where he came from. But what would you like to add to that, John?
I totally agree with yourself and Maisie. I mean, I think when he first came in, there was a lot of we'll lose this guy. His record at was it Portland Thorns? Can't remember now.
No,
What American?
Orlando
Pirates was kept being shoved in our faces, and it was all. It was very much I think a reaction to what had been going on. Like Maisie said, we didn't get any information, and I think everybody was all doom and gloom at the time. So when he came in, what he did do, I thought, was steady the ship really quickly, really well by saying all the right things. Well, you sort of expect that, but not everybody does it. I mean, we've lived through Mourinho, so we know not everybody does it. And I think he's continued to do that. You can tell, I think he's very much on a bit like a Ferguson in the fact he obviously values the psychological element of sport really a lot, and a lot of his key words, his buzz phrase words are very much in tune with that. When we met the joke, don't we, so of some of the stuff he says.
Can you imagine Ferguson saying "red wave"? Really?
Yeah, some of the stuff made me. Although, let's be honest, Ferguson had got away with it. Ferguson said "red wave" would have been up somewhere on that a t-shirt.
Yeah,
but
probably true.
Yeah, so I've been really, really impressed with him. And I think he's shown himself to at least understand the nature of the club, which I think as a manager coming in, that's the first thing they've got to do, because it's such a different club to most clubs. There's a reason why if, Man City win 5-6-0, but we lose by the odd goal, all the emphasis is on United. We generate that talking points, a bit like we're doing now with the top 50 and all that. So understanding that United are a very different animal is really important, and I think he's shown that. And I think now it's a case of letting him do his job, let him work. And the one thing I do love, you've had Anna Blundell say it, you've had Mannion say it, you've had Martha Thomas say, they've all said they've come here to start to enjoy the football, and you've seen this response from the girls. The team that they've produced, the team ethic, the team cohesion, togetherness, that hasn't gone away, despite the fact we've had a good number of changeovers in staff, and obviously the biggest changeover in the manager.
Yeah, no, I think he, as I said, he's doing really well. I think the thing from a fan perspective, and maybe Ben might want to sort of come back on this before we move on to the next topic, but he is very good at making you feel good, never mind the players. The whole you're our 12th player. I love the energy. He genuinely loves what we bring, the singing, and as much as you can't, you just can't help it. He comes up to you and he does that, most of the time. And, in Durham, some of us that were at Durham got to actually speak to him a bit. And I mean, Durham was such a weird pitch. I could smell the guy's aftershave. He was literally right in front of me when we were talking. I'm not even joking. It was a good one, but and obviously remember, I don't know if you saw it, but he wore the flag, didn't he, around his shoulders, and just little things like that. And I think again, it's looking at the bits that don't cost money. It doesn't cost money to make us going mental, but it helps the team. It doesn't cost money to sort of hide the fans, and it has a kick to the players. And I mean, I was thinking about the video of obviously Ella Toon and Leah dancing when we were singing her song at the end of Birmingham. All that's just extra for him to fight, to push the players on with, isn't it? But yeah. So obviously, while we've all jumped into that, what's your view on him, Ben? Are you impressed there with what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it was the press comments after the City game. I think that really. Just sat and listened to him. I think, you've got. I think I messaged John actually just after that. I said, do you know what? You've got a good one there. He's very passionate, clearly, about what he does. But as you say, he's more so than that. He's very passionate about the job he's doing at the club he's at, and you can't ask for more than that. The manager. And I think, if he can have a decent transfer window, if the club can actually support him in the transfer window, which is the first, that's the first hurdle. First hurdle is the club supporting him, and then if he can, make some decent acquisitions, then I don't see why you can't push for Champions League, because let's face it, it's City only need to lose one more game, which they will do between now and May, and they'll be out of it completely. And Everton aren't the team that possibly we thought they might be. So I mean,
managerless now.
Okay, that depends on what comes in with the new manager there, but third place is up for grabs for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the problem is though it's so low hanging fruit. I can see us missing it.
Yeah,
it's like it's on a gift. It's on a gift card with a nice little bow on it, and we've all just got to grab it. And yeah,
I think we all saw Arsenal, didn't we, as a team that we could take over, and then I think we've had in. I must admit, I fell for it. I went for it. I was like, yeah, they're not replacing the players well, and then that's such a great start to the season. I was a bit gutted because I thought that was our chance. But yeah, it's a case of after the summer we had and the debacle of how the club did it for me. I think what he's doing is superb.
Yeah, this is it. So I think what I'll probably do now, I reckon, is obviously, I've been pushing attackers massively. I think it's really important, going forward, because Russo is a top quality striker, but she needs help. She needs help, and I'm loving obviously Carrie Jones getting the time that she's getting. That's great. That's United philosophy, and we might develop her into an Ella Toone, but it's not going to be this season. She's very, very young. And we all remember that Ella Toone, mentioning this because it's true, she's technically still old enough to play in the devs. She's that's how young she is, and that's great for us going forward, I think. And I'm liking the fact that Skinner does rotate his team a little bit as much as he can, and he does do a lot of in-game changes to try and react to what's in front of him.
I think it was really important Fuso scoring as well.
Yeah,
because we need, I think, to like you said, for that little bit of rotation, we need somebody who can come off and add a different threat and a proper goal threat.
Oh, this is it. So obviously, I think that's the thing on there, really. Maisie, what's your topic?
My topic, it was about the refs, about more support, what kind of support, what the refs can really have. So if that was either on or off the pitch, because you can see, like, especially on games there, we haven't got VAR in women's football. So we know that's a support, but I don't think that's going to come in for the next 5 years minimum. So we need to try and do some kind of support, because there's them cases where there can be that odd free kick and what should be awarded, but it's not. And you think you need that little bit more support for the refs, and I would like to know people's opinions on that, really.
So what would you do if you were the head of FA and you had a little pad and a little notepad there, and you could sort of sign something out? What's your solution to it?
It's an odd one, really, because if I was going to look at the game in general and I was going to pick what kind of support I would do, what I would try and do first of all, I would try and if I was the FA, I would invest a little bit more in it, even if it was like League One or League Two refs. Try and give them a little bit more experience, a little bit more training in the refereeing part as well. If that's like, if they want to go, right, you do this once a month and then that'll help your development or during international break or whatever they want to do it on. And then if, for example, during this period, like you could have like an extra ref about, and then if they say, if, for example, it is incorrect, that one could step in like in a little, like a little gadget thing saying, right, I feel like this could be the case.
Like
so
that's like fear, like a TMO in rugby kind of situation.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so it's just like a little gadget off somebody just to speak who's actually on the lines itself. So it gives that ref a little bit more guidance, thinking, oh, right, so you think it's this. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I mean, I'll pick up some of it as well, because people know that I've got no opinions at all on referees. I've never given any opinion one way or the other, and I certainly love Kirsty Dowell. But yeah, no, I think for me, they're looking at it in the wrong way. I mean, it goes without saying that, you know, they've got to put better refs in the sense of higher up the pyramid. If I want to be nice, which I'm trying to be, because you know, it's not fair to give lower level refs us lot in the stands because they're just not used to it. And you know, and I think a few occasions like against Reading where Kirsty Hansen got elbowed, the ref definitely looked at the lino, and the lino looked like she's seen a ghost because she's even less qualified than her rather. Do you see what I mean? So maybe the first easy solution that I could think of, and I'll sort of jump in and I say we'll go around with everyone, but is maybe instead of thinking having the highest grade ref in the middle, maybe have a higher grade linesman or linesperson, because then at least you have got that, because that's traditionally what they're meant to do if the ref made a mistake, to assist them, hence the word assistant referee. Because I have seen a couple of times in my sort of moments of clarity between being really angry at bad decisions is, sometimes they will sort of look at the lino and lino's like, don't look at me. And then they've got to make a decision. So I do get that. And there's me being positive. What about you, Ben? What do you think?
I think you've made a good point about the assistant referees. For me, we've kind of got to the stage now with them that basically all they seem to be there for is to show where the throw-on needs to be taken from. And I think, if you go back 10, 15, 20 years, they were much more actively involved in the game. So, yeah, that's a definite starting point. I think what Maisie had a really good point about the technical thing. And actually, do you know what? That shouldn't really be that difficult to do, because every game has to have a referee's assessor in the stand anyway. So in theory, you wouldn't be like throwing thousands of pounds at the situation. You could simply have the referee's assessor mic'd up to the ref on the pitch saying, "Okay, look, I've seen this. You might want to think about X, Y, Z."
They've done that in the A-League, haven't they? In the men's A-League, haven't they done like a trial where you could hear the referee's decisions? How's that gone in Australia? Because I've not really kept an eye on it.
It's quite common actually in both the NRL, the rugby league, and the AFL Aussie rules. The decision between the video assistant and the referee, the communication is broadcast over the system, loudspeaker system within the stadium.
But I mean, with the men's A-League, did they try it with the football, with the soccer, with the A-League?
Yeah. And so I think that would possibly even help with VAR as well, because at least then you can hear what's going on. Because even with VAR, it doesn't help at all, does it? You're sat in the stadium and you're still ending up going mental at the decision because you don't know what's going on.
I mean, there has been some really, really poor decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we discussed, obviously the great handball, headball incident from pre-COVID with Kirsty Dall, hence why she got a special mention. But, there has been, I mean, it's difficult because we're obviously fans, we're United fans. Obviously, we're not going to see it as objectively as a neutral would be, but it sometimes does seem to be that if you have the exact same tackle, one on a United player, they get a warning. When it's a United player, they get a yellow card. And when I was in Durham, and I'm no word of a lie, Manning got put in a headlock at one point by one of their players, and the ref just didn't do anything about it. And I just don't know. I mean, maybe I would say possibly again. I'll put this to John. Do you think it's that culture of they're trying their best, and to an extent, when I've criticised some refs on Twitter, not by name, just generally. People have said, well, you should be thankful that they're reffing the game kind of situation. And I do think there is an issue with women's football, especially with the commentary, that I'm sick and tired of thanking people for putting their hands up to do something in the game. It's a great sport. It's a passionate sport. You shouldn't get a cookie for saying, yeah, I'll commentate on a football match, or yeah, I'll be a referee. You should be like, oh, thanks for the honor, not like, I'll do you a favor, I'll do it. It really annoys me from a sort of equality point of view. But what do you think, John?
I think you've got a really good point. I think a lot of this is a hangover from, it's a woman's sport, so we're not going to treat it too professionally. And I think, like you said, that's utter crap. It's not fair on the players. It's not fair on the fans. And it's certainly not fair on the game. I think basically a lot of these refs need a subscription to Quick Specsavers, because they are poor. Let's not joke about this. They are poor, and if you really want to sell this game like they want to sell it and improve the game like they want to improve it, they need to improve the refs damn smartish.
And you're right.
It's not about VAR. It's not about giving them all this. It's actually about them being able to spot a problem, or spot a foul, or spot the fact it was not a handball and a header, or spot the fact that they've just taken Leah Gulton out for the 5th time, but we'll just give them a talking to. So,
to be fair,
yeah,
right, I don't know how I'm defending refs because it's normally not it's my project or not. So maybe this is a new me doing this bit tonight.
That's it. The new presenter you that's not having the rant. I'll do your job for you, Andy.
I was shocked that Stanway got a red card. I mean, it's a clear red card. I mean, anybody could see that. But it's so rare in the women's game for them to go to red because, again, I think there's this sort of inbuilt belief of she didn't mean it. Like, whereas
there was
obviously
a lot of people thinking it was a yellow goal, and you do think how was it a yellow card? She didn't even touch the ball.
Maybe in USC it might be. I mean, she apparently had stud marks, which she was showing off later on at the top of her. Actually, before we move on, I can't help myself. Ben, would you have given that as a red? Was it definitely a red, or?
I mean, it's when you've got the stud marks like that, you can't argue against it, can you? I mean, but you're talking about what we just said. It's actually reminding me back of the World Cup, the Lionesses Cameroon game, and you just think about.
Oh yeah, good point.
I mean, if the referee had got a grip on that about an hour before, none of the crap that happens in the second half would have happened.
Absolutely spot on.
I agree.
No, completely. And this is it. I suppose if we've got people that, as I say, sometimes look like they've won a competition in the WSL, how we expecting them to perform on an international stage if they're, if they're on Saturday, they're doing the Vanarama North, on Sunday they're doing Arsenal Chelsea Women, and next month they're doing the World Cup. It's a bit weird. Like it's a bit of a jump, isn't it? But I don't know. I think maybe they'll keep us busy anyway, talking about refs for informative, isn't it? Let's be honest, because it's what it is. What it is. But
I just hope they're doing what they do in the men's game, where they will actually take all the refs away and review decisions.
I'm glad you finished that sentence. I was like, John, that's a bit harsh, I mean,
take them all away, put them up a wall,
just lock them away somewhere.
When you look at it as well, you've got Sky, who's made an investment into the women's football, and you've got BT, who's also got so much of women's football, like the Champions League for one, and they do shows. I've seen it like the Women's Super League on BT before. You got BBC, who runs the Super League. So there's 3 different channels there who does show women's football. So you would also think as well that they'd want to invest that little bit more into the refereeing and the decisions in the game, knowing that it is getting that little bit bigger, because when you do look at that, you do look at that, and then as a woman you'd think, is this how it should be for women's football? And that's not the case. It shouldn't be the case.
Completely. And to be honest, as I say, one of the things about Sky, just to finish on that, I did watch Ref Watch when that came up with the sort of Maradona impression that they did against City when Spurs basically just handballed it in the net, and it was interesting that Dermot Gallagher, the ex male ref, he didn't actually criticize us. He was very nervous, and I think hopefully people are starting to realize this isn't like criticizing some of the top level Prem refs that are on 45 to 70 grand a year. This is like going down to your local park and criticizing the guy who's done it. So I do get that, but hopefully we will get better. Obviously, just moving on to my topic next, actually, because it links in what you were saying about World Cups. I've yet to find someone who thinks that isn't the most stupid idea known to man, woman, or anything in between to do a biennial World Cup. I think I saw it, and just a shout out before we get into it. There's a fantastic show that Nat did with Catherine Parquet from Sin 71 on Wednesday. That's just gone. That will be on our YouTube channel. Where with Connor as well, where they went into it as well in a bit more detail, and that was one of the things that I certainly watched this morning. Very interesting idea, because Catherine, being a Canadian journalist, brought it more about the CONCACAF and the sort of non-European base to it. But I personally think that it would be the worst thing in the world for the women's game, short of smaller goals and smaller balls, Emma Hayes. But there you go. I'll be good. I promise I'll be good. I think that. What grows the game? I think personally, for me, it's not a coincidence that it's mostly Americans that are pushing this, because you've obviously got Jill Ellis as the main mouthpiece for it, and you've just got to look at the NWSL. Until very recently, that was owned by US Women's Soccer. and what hurts me saying that, but that's technically what it's called. It's the only time you're going to hear me say soccer on here. Don't worry. And 2 previous leagues failed before that happened, and essentially, apparently, like Mark would have had this at Orlando, that the sort of US women's national team coach tells him how often he can play national team players, and if they want to pull them out for a random training group somewhere, they just do it. There's just no autonomy with the clubs, because really, I think, you know, with Americans, it's the afterthought and the USA mentality of obviously wanting to sort of like do it country by country. So I get why it's appealing to people, but we've got the history and we've got the rivalries, I think, in the club game, and I think you need to grow the club game first. Obviously from a neutral perspective, and with your sort of speciality in Australia and with the W League, or the A League Women as it's now called, do you agree with that? Do you think actually it is mental, or what's your view on it?
I mean, it's mental for all sorts of reasons, but what actually concerns me, there are a couple of things that concern me that actually mean it may happen, simply because I think they've made such a song and dance about the Men's World Cup going to 2 years. I can't help but at the back of my mind be very concerned that a way out of them dropping the Men's World Cup going to 2 years would be to try it out with the women's game, a bit like VAR was tried out at the last World Cup in the Women's World Cup. That's what's at the back of my mind, and that's what concerns me a lot. I think naturally it would mean the women's football couldn't have the stage it has at the Olympics at the present time. Positives and negatives to that, because it's potentially it's a 6-game tournament in less than 2 weeks, and the turnaround for that on players is shocking. So there's that side to it. I think, my concern is it will happen simply because it's an excuse to try it out and sort of kick the can down the road for the men's competition. That's my concern.
Yeah, no, again, I think that's the case. I think that the problem is as well with the situation is I don't think players are going to get much of an input. And I notice they've got a lot of Americans, also Americans that are coming towards the end of their career as well, where it's kind of more do as I say, not necessarily what I do. Maisie, what's your view on it?
Personally, I wouldn't do it. You've already got like the Euros as well, what's every 4 years. So you're still getting the excitement every 2 years. You're still getting the World Cup, then the Euros. So at the same time, even if, for example, you took away like the whole football input, like the football players itself, they do need a break. And when you've got that time from club football coming back to club football again, and then it's not obviously international competition, they do need that bit of space. They need to have that time with their family. They need to build up ready for pre-season, and I just feel like it's completely wrong in my opinion. I wouldn't have it whatsoever. It's not fair on the players for me at all, and I just think it's just what they're probably doing it for is probably just more for creating money for UEFA and FA, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just think they don't understand the history between like the club game itself, because as I say, with a stroke of a pen, they can move, quite a well-established team to a different time zone in America. Mm-hmm. So they're just not gonna get it. I mean, you try and move Man United to Milton Keynes and see what happens. Like, it just wouldn't.
Don't
work.
give the Glazers ideas.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Yeah. I can have another string to his bow. I think they're too busy with Tampa at the moment as with the NFL. But what about you, John? Are you sort of with the collective with us, thinking that? To be honest, I'd like to see who likes it. To be honest,
it's interesting because I was dead against it. Then I actually heard Arsene Wenger talk about it and talk quite eloquently about it and provide a different idea. And the fact their idea of cutting down all the mid-season games and just having these games at the end of the season in a set period of time would actually free up a lot of that overwork a lot of the squads do. And the other thing is, the whole argument of having squads is so that you can rotate, and a lot of teams don't do that. They'll just put out the first 11, 12, 15 players and keep it like that. Saying that, though, I don't agree with it. I think there's already far too much. I do not get the women's calendar at all. As a fan of the male game coming into the female game, it absolutely does my head in the female football calendar, because we had it last season. We've got it again this season. We're going like 2 or 3 weeks with no game. It's absolutely ridiculous, which probably goes against what I've just said, that we don't, it's too many games in the. Well, actually, if they sorted out the bloody calendar properly, they would. I think they would have a better product. And I think the other thing is, this just shows how much I think a lot of people who make decisions, the decision makers, see this female game as servicing the national sides, not the club sides. It's like national side, then club side's a distant second. And as United supporters, we don't accept that. We haven't for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of them as well, isn't it? Like, I think there are differences between the male and the women's game, but then I get really, really nervous when they start separating the men's game from the women's game, because it gives space to some really stupid ideas, like smaller goals and smaller balls. But I appreciate there are differences, and one of the things that is typical, bloke here I wouldn't have considered, but one of the things that Catherine mentioned on our show on Wednesday that All for United did is pregnancy. If you had 2 World Cups for a large part of their playing career, she was mentioning about, I think one of the Americans, I want to say Alex Morgan, possibly, I know she's got children, but one of the Americans that has children mentioned, well, it makes it a lot harder for them to decide when they want to have a child, because, obviously that's a major decision, and a lot of players do struggle with coming back from that as well, and when to put it. And with 2 World Cups, you're asking people to miss quite a lot of their international career, because obviously if you win a World Cup, that's a big deal. Even if biennial World Cup, will it damage it a little bit? Yeah, because obviously it's special because it's 4 years, but you're asking people to make some very difficult decisions there, I think, as well. What do you think, Maisie?
Yeah, I completely agree with your point there. I think I read something a couple of weeks ago about women footballers and women refs about being pregnant during the stages of being a footballer and being a ref, saying they don't agree with it. And for me, it shouldn't be about if they agree with it or not. It's the person's choice if they want to be pregnant or if they don't. And having that World Cup every 2 years, it does miss some opportunities, and it misses them opportunities with the family as well. And for them times as well, them 2 years where you're not playing international football, you're spending that quality time with your family also. So, and when you do look at it, as for anybody, it's quite upsetting to not see your family, because when club football, you do see a lot in the men's, especially when it comes to Christmas, it's rampant, like especially around Christmas time. And then the women's game, they do have a bit more of a leeway. There's less games compared to the men's football as well, so they still get that little bit of a break, but they're still playing 20 plus games in a season, and that's not including as well, and that's just in the Super League, without them playing in cups, without them still playing in the Champions League as well, so they're still playing quite a lot of games.
Yeah, no, I think that as well, and I think we could definitely look at maybe expanding some of these leagues. And I believe Ben might know more than this on me. That is it simple? Is it only? I think it's 12 in our league, because that's all they could essentially agree full-time salaries for. Surely you want to try and get the league a bit better and be able to afford to have more teams in your top 2 tiers.
You do, but at the moment I'm not sure there's the strength and depth in the Championship to make it. Because I think it's one of those things that, yes, you do want more team. Of course, you want to go to 14 and maybe 16 eventually. But you just kind of look at the Championship at the moment, and you kind of think, well, who would be those 2 or 3 that would come up? And I kind of think we kind of got very much almost 4 leagues in the Super League at the moment anyway. And I think if you then bring another 2 or 3 teams in, say in the next 2 or 3 years, I still think you would just get massive blowout scorelines. If you think back to when Yeovil were up there and what it did to them as well, I think you've got to think sustainably for those clubs as well. You know, they can go up, they can chuck money at it that they may not have, and they won't succeed. They'll come back down, and then their long-term future is at stake. I mean, Yeovil don't exist as a club now. They joined with another local team.
Right.
You know?
I didn't know that. That's a shame. That's a real shame.
I think you need to look. Yes, we want it, but I think you need to think a bit more long-term about how those clubs can be supported to make that jump.
Yeah, no, I think, to be honest, I think that it's one of them, isn't it? I think we need to maybe up the Euros and up the sort of Asia Cup, isn't it, for the that side? And I believe Namrata, a friend of the show, was mentioning, or possibly Atano, or maybe even both of them, that that apparently the Indian women's team, they just get funding to do a little bit before the next sort of qualifying round. They haven't really got the money there, and
they're hosting the Asia Cup.
Even though they're hosting it, apparently they're just going to be like given a month or so before to train, and you just can't, And I think that maybe possibly you could say it's a way of, as you say, as John was saying, to highlight, to sort of whitewash a little bit, paper over the cracks some of the big holes in the women's game, and use it as a bit of a sort of look. We've got a shiny, international sort of situation. But I think we've got a related topic with John anyway. So, what were you going to bring up?
It's about the calendar. As I say, coming into the females game after watching male football for so long, this broken calendar and it's such a fractured calendar that I don't understand how the players and the teams are supposed to produce their best football, because it's stop, start. And when you get in your top clubs not playing games for 2 weeks, that's just ridiculous, especially when you're trying to sell a product, especially when you're trying to produce professional footballers. And let's be clear, women are physiologically different to men. So stop starting them is actually probably going to be more detrimental to their physicality, because they don't. Obviously, you've got the whole thing about menstruation. You've got the whole thing about their muscles and the way they build them up differently often to men. You've got a lot of differences which they already have to overcome to become professional athletes. So just to keep doing this to them, I think it's really unfair. Then to ask them to produce their best football, or their best effort, or their best what's the word I'm after? The best quality, when you're not treating them professionally. I just think it's unconscionable.
And I know it's one of the. Come on.
Sorry, carry on.
I was just saying, just building on your point, I noticed that one of the new proposals is 5 windows for the women, 3 windows for the men, which seems like why not make it 55? Then it seems like a weird number to come up with. Is there any background on that, Ben? I mean, what's your view on that?
Oh, I completely agree with what John said, but I think there's a wider issue related to this as well. We're still trying to build the fan base for the competition. I think the whole fact that attendances are slightly down this year across the boards, particularly as well if you factor in the games played at the men's stadiums, they're massively down this season. People are not getting chances to see their teams on a regular basis. So, I'll take the example of Chelsea, as they're up the road for me. They will go 6 weeks between home games. After this block, they've got 2 matches. They're 2 league games away, plus the cup semi-final with City.
It's almost like they're deliberately trying to get them to fail.
Yeah. And I would highlight the last home game there against Leicester. It was the first time that the players could meet and greet the fans immediately after the game. They were on the pitch for 45 minutes straight after the game. The amount of kids there, it was awesome. But they're now going to go 6 weeks.
You're listening, Man United. Sorry,
they're now going to go 6 weeks without being. They could have gone back to school the next day and said, "Oh, you've got to come down to the next women's game because I met this player, that player. I've got photos, all the rest of it." It's 6 weeks. That's all gone now. It's nuts.
it's about generating excitement, isn't it? Let's be
Absolutely
honest.
Absolutely right.
What obviously we're touching again on, obviously with especially with the comments that John made about female athletes. Obviously, what's your view on it, Maisie?
I feel like for me, in terms of this, like the calendar, what John has said, as well as everything else, the fitness levels aren't going to be up there compared to the men's football too. Because, like you see, our men's football, especially Man United, men, for instance, they're playing twice a week at the moment with the Champions League and the Premier League. When you get like the women, they play. Okay, we'll play one Super League game here. We'll play here the cup game here in Thursday, and then we won't play a game now because it's international break for 2 weeks, or we'll just have like 2-3 week break anyway. It just doesn't give that fitness levels for the women's game, and sometimes when the players aren't that fully fit, it can create injuries as well. For me, I feel like with the women's game, it's a lot more skillful compared to men's football in my eyes. And for me, especially when you're that skillful as a player, you need to keep your fitness levels up, because when you've got so much skill, it can create injuries what can go on a longer period of time.
Yeah, no, completely. I couldn't say it better myself.
I think it's no coincidence that there's a lot of muscle injuries in women's football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, physiologically, there is going to be anyway, because of the way females build up the muscles around the knees. I'm sorry, it comes out my orthopedics, but of the actual ligaments and tendons won't be as strong for the stresses that you're putting on them. But saying that, though, asking them to do that, then saying, like Maisie said, oh, we won't do it for 2 weeks, we'll do it for 3 weeks, we won't be fit for this game. You look at somebody like Leah Goulton, who a lot of her attributes is about her being fit, match fit. And I'm not talking about a technique, I'm talking about just a pace and a power. And when does she get the consistency to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows again what we were discussing earlier in the last topic about clubs almost being, again, it's turned into a metaphor. Basically, the club games are going, and then internationals are being pushed forward, and it's devaluing. You know, I'm assuming the 5 international window will be in addition to the Christmas break. So in reality, you've got 6 breaks then in a period of 6 months from September to May. For obviously the European, so I know it's different. Obviously, with the double leagues even shorter than the NWSL runs through summer. And I think personally,
imagine them doing that for the male football, though.
Yeah,
and this is the hypocrisy.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be honest as well, the other thing about it is, you know, I think heritage helps. I mean, let's look at United. When United was formed, there's no real reason on paper that we would have any rivalries with anybody because we were a brand new team. But you watch me and you watch others when we played Liverpool, when we played the historical rivalries generated it. So I personally think, I mean, someone mentioned before about the cups. I mean, maybe get to a situation where the Champions League's a bit beefier. Maybe a women's Europa League, because you're going to have that history there still. What did Chelsea do because everyone most people, I'm a bit strange because I'm purely a women's football fan, but most people like men's and women's versions of Chelsea, Arsenal, whatever they support. And I think it would bring through that storyline, wouldn't it? Oh, we get to play. Do you remember we're playing, I don't know, Chelsea's playing, Bayern Munich or whatever. Oh, do you remember when we played them in the men's last year? You know, it links it all together a little bit. Yeah. And I think it would give them the sort of opportunities to stick 55 sponsors on everything, which is, I appreciate what the FA is looking to do. But it's, you know, I think the problem with the She Believes Cup, which again, maybe I'm being a bit unpolitically correct here, it's got a stupid name. It's not really got like a heritage name. You know, can you imagine a He Believes Cup? You know, can you imagine like Harry Maguire going, yeah, you know, it just wouldn't, it just sort of run away. You know, it just wouldn't work. But these kind of non-history, I mean, history stories with not much history in, you know, they it's hard to get that. It's hard to get that sort of history, isn't it? I think, and I don't know how far we're away from it from a women's Europa League because of the cost, but I'd certainly love to see more in the Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, definitely. I think you're spot on about adding a European competition for maybe not quite the top teams, because it increases the exposure of the players. they get used to playing against foreign teams. That's going to help them internationally. It's going to help them when they break into like European teams. It's going to help them technically. It's going to help. There's no downside to it other than the fact they don't seem to have an appetite to do it.
This is probably, again, a topic in itself. I'm just going to throw it out there with Ben. This Christmas break lark, what was the reason behind that originally? And do you think it's also run its course a little bit? Like, wouldn't that help with the calendar?
Yeah, and also I don't see in a way why there has to be a Christmas break in women's football. It's again, from a for a minute, let's just take the players out of it for a second and to put it from a fan's perspective, because we're still trying to grow the game. That's the time of year when everyone looks to do things as families. And women's football, even at the top level, still can offer spectators things that top level men's football never will do, and probably never has done. So that's a unique USP. You could don't necessarily play it at the men's grounds, play it at the regular stadiums and fill the regular stadiums on a Boxing Day or 27th of December or something like that. It just doesn't, like many things you said tonight, doesn't make sense.
Feels like
it's so simple, isn't it? All we have to do is be in charge and we'll fix it all. It's fine.
Feels like there's a 70-year-old in the FA went, but if we let them play on Boxing Day and Christmas Day, who's going to cook our dinners?
Yes.
It's like, come on, get rid the century.
I mean, you've obviously recently got into the women's game and stuff. I mean, LSV is not the easiest to get to. I mean, that's again another source. But what do you think about that? Maybe having, at least a festive fixture that's linked to when everyone's off can watch it.
Yeah, I agree. When it's Boxing Day every year, I just think, oh, football's on all day. I'm just literally so happy I could watch like 10 matches today. And for me, and when it's in the women's game, you do want to have that couple. You want to see the couple of games, even if it's one or two. It'd be nice, just for people to watch it together. Not everybody I know really likes women's football, so like. You could literally like show it to like your family member, like, oh, this is women's football, it's really good. And then it gets them into the women's football as well. And perhaps maybe they'll start liking it more too. So it's a bit more to like just spending time with your family doing something that you really like. I did really like your idea as well, though, Andy, about Europa League, because the Europa League is never something I've really ever considered for women's football, because you just think, oh, Champions League. But Europa League would be definitely a really good idea. And if they brought the Europa League in, it would have been a good idea for Man United for 4th and 5th to be in Europa League. So it gives Man United that bit of European experience, so they know once they do get into the Champions League on what they can expect going into Europe, how to play abroad, what abroad teams are like compared to the Women's Super League, because Man United doesn't really have that experience abroad, unlike obviously the men's football.
Yeah, and I think we're probably running out of time now, but I think that one of the things that I notice is that there are other leagues that could do a lift up. Glasgow City apparently wins everything in their league every single year. I know Rangers has appeared again, and you could give these cross-border, because they get knocked out. I know they're not that early this time, but sometimes they get knocked out quite early. It just lets players play big games, and and it maybe brings up some levels when it comes to the Scandinavian sides, and just giving some exposure. And I think more opportunities with Datsun, is it, that have got the Champions League at the minute, that seem to be doing really well with the broadcasting. So again, maybe we could look at sort of growing that, I think. But I mean, one of the things that's proven tonight is that, mixed with FA's interesting decisions and FIFA's borderline corruption, that we're all going to have a lot to say. And I think it's been a really interesting show. And obviously we've got just to sort of look at that, we've got obviously Saturday Night Live with Ben tomorrow. And if anyone has heard Ben, he's a great guy. He's got a heck of a personality, and he can make the phone book interesting, to be honest, that guy. And Sunday some of us are going to go on the road. So some of us are going to be at SC United looking at their women's team. So again, we try and give the sort of exposure a little bit to more sort of non-league football. I know John's like the king of Stourbridge now with Stourbridge FC, and we went to we went to them, and I think it's definitely well liked by the players, and it's definitely important to remember that maybe if there's not a big game on, have a look at your local team, see who's around, because not only you're probably going to get that interaction, you're going to watch a really good level of football. And in my opinion, the Stourbridge pitch was better than Durham's, to be honest. But that's again,
and this weekend as well.
That's what it is, the third round, isn't it? Yeah, sorry, that's exactly where I'm going. Yeah, I think that's what FC United are playing on Sunday. But yeah, Ben, obviously, thanks for everyone tonight. Ben, if anyone wants to learn more about what you do and yourself, where would they go and find you?
Yeah, so our Twitter feed is, as it's on the screen, is at Ben Gilby1. And I write for Beyond 90. We were the Australian women's football platform about the FAWSL. And I founded Impetus, which is a British-based women's football site.
Brilliant. Yeah, definitely check that out. Definitely 100%. And obviously, Maisie.
You can find me on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Devils United. I do look at both Man United for men and women's football, so you get to see both content there. And as well, I will be doing a watch along actually on the women's football for the England game, so you could check that out as well if you do want to give that a watch. It will be the Latvia game.
Nice one.
And John?
Yeah, Twitter handles down below, really. I'm all new to all of this. I found somewhere to rant again.
And normally you would see John Foster, MUSC. You can see him in spirit there, holding the award on the sort of profile picture there, and he'd be obviously pushing it for all for United. But I'd say it's been a great show, guys, and it's been fantastic to be on. We always John.
Well done, Andy.
You did brilliant, Andy. Enjoy.
Well done, Andy.
And we'll see everybody again soon.